has been the man turning us against one another. He has been unable to see the truth because we have been fighting for 10 square feet of ground. Our church, our little piece of
Allow me to tell you a story you seem to have missed it. About a brotherhood nobody believes existed. The Bronx in the 70s, urban decay. Slumlords burnt buildings down every day. All whites took flight, politicians abandoned the Bronx. No police responses, we were stranded. They made up a way to avoid the Bronx, the expressway that almost destroyed the Bronx. See, they uprooted families, devastated businesses. They cut the Bronx in half and the whole world witnessed it. They murdered Martin, Malcolm X, and both Kennedys. The cops ain't protect or serve, they were the enemy. The Bronx was the danger zone of only destruction. So this gave rise to the need for gang culture. They modeled themselves after the biker gangs, and if you got caught on the wrong turf, you might get hanged. Sleeveless jean jackets with swastikas. To say it was about race is preposterous. So I'm hoping the truth doesn't take you out your zone about the place that birthed hip-hop, which I call home.
The Bronx wasn't safe for no man. 70 models, the black spades and the savage nomads. Saigons of Harlem, the jolly stompers. Men became monsters, divide and conquer. Black Panthers and young lords try to push for peace and unity. Like together we can have much more. Trying to show them who the real enemy was, but that kumbaya wasn't really getting a buzz.
The ghetto brothers realized the mission was sacred. They evolved from a gang to an organization. They put down the toolies and found strength for unity and ran programs for the kids in their community.
It gets deeper, they fired the Grim Reaper and changed the warlord position to peacekeeper. Benjamin Cornell, known as Black Benji, fit the bill perfectly, that position was empty. Yellow Benji heard 4 gangs had beef and sent Black Benji to go find the leaders of each and attempt to put the senseless bloodshed to a cease. Bring them to me and see if I can broker a peace. So Benjamin took a few brothers with him, not realizing the chance for survival was slim. Not sure if it was a machete or even a knife, but what matters is that a good brother lost his life. So December 8th, 1971, Benjamin became the last thing he'd ever become. A martyr who gave his life that fateful night, trying to turn darkness to light and make wrong things right.
And just like in the Warriors, every gang in the Bronx tried to avenge his death with a savage response. Karate Charlie had a whole army outside as he hugged and kissed Miss Benjamin with pride. Told her the stage was set for a war in the streets, till she said,
"But Charlie, my son died for peace."
His head dropped, son had to swallow his pride and go address the news reporters who were gathered outside. See, they came to report on decay and the drugs and how the city was about to be bathed in blood. Instead of declaring war upon the obvious enemies, they proposed a peace treaty in Cornell's memory. Peace.
Now look, what we have here before us. You're standing right now with 9 delegates from 100 gangs. Nobody is wasting nobody.
All the cameras turned off. They were only there for the smoke, cause peace and love is not what they want to promote. The most notorious gangs from the south to the north gathered at the boys club on 174th. And on that day the black cloud of death was lifted. With peace in the air, it seems all the energy shifted. They were able to stop hate and not wage war and walk through blocks they couldn't walk through before.
The Ghetto Brothers started bringing out their band. They invited former enemies to outside jams. Seeds of peace they planted multiplied, and they flew black and Rican flags side by side. With parties out of apartments and out of the basement, they brought the sets out to entertain with. Outlaw gangs became DJ snipers. Cool Herc and Lamb were the hoods by pipers.
The black spades soon became Zulu Nation, trade for elevation with death and incarceration. Grandmaster Flash invented the quick mix. Cowboy and Melly Mel, they started to talk slick. Guns became microphones with long cables. Bullets to rhymes, knives turned into turntables. Chalk out lines became cardboard boxes.
That's what peace and unity up in the Bronx did.
Welcome to the Bronx Hip Hop Oral History Project. I'm Pastor Crespo Jr., the research librarian and archivist for the Bronx Hip Hop Oral History Project. Today is October 23rd, 2025, And today we have Topaz1, also known as Lloyd Murphy. Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for having me, Pastor. Always great to be here.
Awesome. And Topaz, we recorded you some time back, maybe about 2 years ago, for the Bronx Aerosol Arts documentary project. But today, we're going to interview you on a different topic, right? You're definitely a former veteran of the Rubble Kings documentary. When was that documentary produced originally?
Well, we did Rubble Kings back in 2010. Finally got it up there in the movies in 2015. So, it's been actually 10 years since it hit theaters.
Got it. And let's remind everyone what Rubble Kings documentary is about. What's the basis of that documentary?
Rubble Kings started out as an at-risk youth video that we were doing for troubled kids in New York City. But because all of the people that were involved in Rubble Kings were basically involved in hip-hop culture and the birth of hip-hop culture, we kind of flipped it into that, which it kind of evolved into that automatically as other people got involved. It was like, well, why don't we talk about hip-hop? As long as we're talking about, youth and using music and art as a form of, bringing a community together as opposed to just a business genre. So that was the point of Rubble Kings. And Rubble Kings was basically a turn of events that happened in the Bronx that actually caused things to happen that started the birth of hip-hop culture. So that's what Rubble Kings was about. It was about, the street gangs of those days who actually made a peace treaty and brought unity between the community. And let me say, when I say community, I gotta say, blacks, Puerto Ricans, whites, whoever was around the South Bronx at that time, joining together and finding an escape in music and art as opposed to the violence.
Got it. And the time frame we're talking about, right? You're referring to the Hoe Avenue Peace Treaty?
The Hoe Avenue Peace Treaty, which took place in 1971.
Got it. And remember what location that was at?
That was at the Hoe Avenue Boys and Girls Club, I believe it was.
Roger that. And what makes this old documentary about the early 70s important to you? Why is that such an important video for you? And you kind of mentioned it a little, the beginning of hip-hop history.
Well, the thing that made it vital was what a lot of people don't know, and perhaps the listeners don't know, is that, gang culture, which has always been a part of New York City culture from the earliest days of New York City, where you had immigrants coming into the country and finding their own communities and really gathering to protect themselves in their own communities and protecting their communities themselves. So it wasn't that much different in the South Bronx, but unfortunately, gangs became too big and out of control and do a lot of things. A lot of violence started, but basically in those days, gangs ruled the streets. So it was a lot of violence, and it seemed like the Bronx, really New York City, was separated into territories where you had certain gangs ruling certain territories, and they were the law enforcement. They were the dominant force in the community, whether it be the Savage Coast or Black Spades or whoever it was. They basically controlled the communities. So the pivotal point of the Hoe Avenue Peace Treaty was a time when the gangs came together after the death of a peace counselor named Black Benji to sign a treaty saying that, okay, we're going to, cease and desist from killing one another. Up until that point, there had been a lot of violence in the streets, and you weren't allowed to go into certain communities without permission from whatever gang was running that community. But after the peace treaty, it was more freedom to go and actually Karate Charlie and Yellow Benji, which the Ghetto Brothers had a band, and the band started, playing music and bringing the community together, other gangs together to basically have music and dance as opposed to gang rumbles. So music became a part of our community where people use music as a form of ministry to bring people together as opposed to, fighting over territories. So I would say that Black Benji's death, who I really I claim him to be a martyr because his death actually brought about this peace treaty, which paved the way for hip hop culture to begin in the South Bronx.
Right. And did gang violence stop? Did all the gangs heed that peace treaty?
What it did was it gave us hope of peace, because even though it did, because there was going to be a war after the killing, so it was going to be a war. So that war being ended because of the peace treaty actually stopped a lot of the wars and ongoing beefs guys had with each other, because there was a lot of beefs for little things, insignificant things. Well, I can say insignificant, but being that people were dying over it, you can't say it's insignificant, because it was significant obviously to them, or they wouldn't have killed you over it. But it did quell out of the beefs, and what happened was it gave people hope of peace. And over a period of time, even though things did stop, some wars did stop automatically, other things began to eventually stop, where you had gangs started turning into breakdance crews. Gangs started turning into graffiti crews. Gangs started turning into DJs, and guys started finding other talents they had, which were basically geared toward music and dance and art, as opposed to just trying to find new territory to take over.
Right.
So it started a transition in the Bronx that actually touched the entire world.
Got it. So it didn't stop all gang violence, but it was a significant move in the mentality of a lot of the gang members, and it did change a lot of the gangs.
Well, and yes, including myself. I should say, Desert Black Benji changed me for the negative and the positive at the same time, where being in that neighborhood where it happened, I was willing to go to war because it was my community.
What neighborhood was that?
The Ghetto Brothers Clubhouse was on 162nd Street, off of, that was in between Westchester Avenue and Prospect Avenue. It's like it's a long hill. And you have this long hill coming down 163rd into Westchester Avenue, but the up block is Prospect Avenue. So we lived on Hewitt Place in Westchester Avenue, which is like a block away from their clubhouse. So, it's all the same neighborhood, but even though there were different gangs in that neighborhood, it's still one neighborhood, so you're still one community. And when I say community, I mean, blacks, whites, Puerto Ricans, mainly blacks and Puerto Ricans, but there's, some whites in there too. And obviously New York City is a melting pot, so you had all kind of people, especially Caribbean, people from all over the world, basically. Just predominantly black and Puerto Rican, but basically, New York City itself is a melting pot.
Right. Now, you look like a young man, brother, but you're 67 years old.
Yeah.
So, that puts you at a really significant age, during the 1971 peace treaty, right? What were you, about 13 years old?
Yeah, I was 13, so I wasn't old enough to be a shot caller yet. But I just basically did what the elders in our community set forth, because we had elders, let me say this about gangs, we were outlaws. We weren't thugs. We weren't gangsters. Outlaws, meaning we believed in law and order. We just didn't believe in the system's type of law and order. So we created our own law and order outside of the law that they made, which is what we called outlaws.
Right. So, wow. Were you part of a gang?
Yes, I was in a couple of gangs. So.
You mind mentioning, or?
Yeah. So originally we had the gang called the Hewitt Place Boys, which was just, our block crew. Most gangs actually started out as block crews. And, just kids playing together. Like I said, we watched shows like the Little Rascals and the East Side Kids and the Bowery Boys. And we kind of emulated that. The Little Rascals, they had their little gang and they played games together and they did all the stuff. And that's what we did. We played street games and we had a lot of fun together. But as we, grow older, and when I say older, I mean teenage, because these are mostly teenagers. Gangs was predominantly teenage kids in the neighborhood. We began to form these block crews. We would watch stuff going on in the South, like the Jim Crow laws, where blacks who were being hung, and we were like, okay, we can't let this happen in our community. So we're going to have to unite and make sure that that doesn't happen here, where we're being violently killed. And we just kind of banded together and said, okay, we don't need to protect a lot of real estate, but we need to protect this one block that we live on. So block crews generally were like, 20 to 25 kids in the neighborhood that stuck together. There was elected officials like a president, vice president, and warlord. After that, these block crews kind of grew into what later became street gangs, where guys started, they didn't want to just have their block. Now they wanted another block, and another block, and another block to kind of expand their own territories. And this is when they start trying to get out of control, with people trying to take over more and more territories. So that's when, all these stupid wars and guys just with egos really just trying to expand on their territory.
Right.
And this type of thing.
Now, the first time I interviewed you was for the Bronx Aerosol Arts documentary project, featuring Bronx writers. And as the majority of the world knows of it as graffiti. When did you start tagging and writing?
Probably about 1969, 1970. We used to write on the inside. First of all, let me say this. Gangs predominantly tag their territories to let you know, like, if you went on a gang's territory, generally you would see the gang's name. Like, if you went on Savage Gold territory, you would see the Savage Skulls written on the wall, because we would tag the walls to let people know we own this property, we own this territory. So if you're walking by a block and you see Savage Skulls on the wall, that's because we own this neighborhood, so you're in our turf. So this is what we did as well. We tagged our names on our community to let outsiders know, listen, we're here. You might not see us, but this is the Hoe Place Boys. Or really, we became what was known as the Ghetto Wolves. And we would, write that on the walls. And actually, it was a building, it was a big church. And we used to write that on the church. So if somebody walking through the block, they would see our name and they know whose territory they were marching through. So then we just started writing our names, Topaz. I would write it everywhere. Anywhere I'd go, I'd just write Topaz. I just write it all over the place, because for us, it's like, okay, people see your name, that means you're famous. And we weren't trying to conquer the world, but if you were famous in the Bronx, as far as you were concerned, you were famous in the whole world, because the Bronx is the whole world.
Right.
For us anyway.
It's your world.
Yeah, it's our world.
That's right. Now, how did you get involved? The documentary was concluded or filmed in 2010, right?
Yeah, basically.
How did you get involved in that? How were you approached? I know you're in the documentary. I've watched it.
Yeah.
So how did you get involved in it?
Ironically, I was in New York at the time, because I wasn't living in New York. But another guy asked me to come down and do a documentary. So I was down in New York at the time filming another documentary. And I get this call from Shan Nicholson, who directed Rubble Kings, asking me if I would be in the documentary Rubble Kings. He heard about me through King Class, who is a New York, he's a gang historian. So he basically keeps the documentary and the information on the gangs from, the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, even up to today. He's a gang historian, so he basically keeps the records on gangs. And they were looking for somebody to, be in the film who was, part of gangs, but also a part of hip hop too, because they wanted to unite the two. So they were looking for somebody from that area that was around during that peace treaty, that was around in that neighborhood, in that community during the time that Black Benji was killed, because that's the focal point of Rubble Kings, the death of Black Benji, and somebody that was around then that could talk about the history, and that also went on to do music and art. So that's the reason why I was chosen. He saw one of my interviews online, and he read my interview, and he's like, look, we gotta get this guy in our film.
Got it. And so, what's going on now with that documentary, Rubble Kings? Is it being remade, or are you just pushing it out and trying to repopularize that video?
So we had Rubble Kings premiere in 2015. We had issues with getting distribution here in the United States, so we wound up getting distribution in London. The problem with that was they only distributed in Europe. They didn't let it come to the United States, so it never gained the popularity that it should have. And it is a very important part of our history in the Bronx, but it never got its real run, so to speak, in the United States because of the distribution issues. Even though it did go to Netflix for a while, it's on Amazon Prime currently, and it's also on Apple TV currently, so you can get the movie, but it never actually had distribution where it went to DVD or anything to that effect in the United States itself. Now, we leased it to this London company for 10 years, and this being 2025, we just got the license back this year. So the plan is to try to redistribute it in the United States so it can really gain its popularity that it really deserves as a part of New York, not just hip-hop history, but New York history in itself, Bronx history especially.
Got it. So, what's the plan with this new redistribution and re-release? Are you guys going to redo the documentary, or what changes are we expected to see with it?
We haven't talked about redoing it because the truth speaks for itself. And because the movie, the film, the documentary hasn't really had a lot of exposure, some people have heard of it. Like, you've heard of it, and there's pockets of people that have heard of it. But right now, the plan is to have every human being on Earth know what this documentary is and how important it is in the birth of hip-hop culture. We need to let every single person breathing on this planet know Black Benji's story, know Charlie and Benji's story. We want every single person alive to know this story and to know the true birth of hip-hop culture.
And who's Charlie?
Karate Charlie was the actual president of the Ghetto Brothers. The Yellow Benji was the founder of the Ghetto Brothers. Charlie was the president of the Ghetto Brothers. So you had the Ghetto Brothers band and you had the Ghetto Brothers gang. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds, you know,
right,
in one package with two different guys, you know, trying to merge the two and also bring the community together as well.
Got it. And were the Ghetto Brothers just black Bronxites, Puerto Rican Bronxites? What was the gang made up of?
The ghetto. So whoever lived in the ghetto, that's who was in the Ghetto Brothers. So it wasn't, you know, the president and founder were of Puerto Rican, you know, descent. But, you know, this is, once again, the South Bronx, where you have a variety of people. You know, you have blacks, you have whites, because there was white guys in the Ghetto Brothers too. In fact, one of my karate instructors was a white guy, you know, who was in the Ghetto Brothers. So there were white guys in the Ghetto Brothers as well. So it wasn't a color thing, it was more of a community thing where, you know, you were part of the community and you wanted to be part of the program in terms of what they were trying to do, which, you know, they started out as a gang, but then they had food programs. Actually, they still have a food program. So they're still doing things for the community even in 2025. So the dream is still alive, the hope is still alive, and the work still goes on even in 2025. But yeah, it was a whole melting pot of blacks and Puerto Ricans and a few whites too. So it was definitely what people may not know, even though it was run by Puerto Ricans. In those days, we didn't really look at it as black and Puerto Rican or white. It was just, you know, you're part of the community.
There you go. Absolutely. That's the South Bronx.
Yeah, that's the South Bronx.
Now, what can we expect? The documentary stands for itself. It's not going to be changed. But there are a few changes, I guess, to the shell of the documentary. There's going to be, are you allowed to talk about the new music that's going to be overlaid onto it?
So here's our hope and our desire, and really the plan. We don't want to just show the film. We want to actually show them hip-hop. We want to show them, first of all, we want to show them what real hip-hop is like. We don't want to just show them the history of hip-hop. We want to show them hip-hop. And not hip-hop as most people know, because most people only know about hip-hop is the industry of hip-hop.
Right.
But hip-hop itself is more of a love thing. You know, it's a love for your community. It's a love for the music. You know, it's a love for yourself.
It's a culture.
Yeah. So they don't really show that part of it because today's business is more about, well, who has the most money or who has the most fame or who did what first and all this other stuff, which I'm not going to get into. But that's not our plan. Our plan is to show the movie, not so much as to, we're going to show how hip-hop was created, but we wanted to start showing why hip-hop was created. Hip-hop was created by Bronx teenagers for the community. You know, it was an escape from violence. It was an escape from, you know, your daily trouble, your daily problems. You know, music was, you might say, something that was made to calm the savage beast, so to speak. You know, you can be depressed or angry or whatever, but you put on the right music and the person can be like a little pussycat after they heard the right song. Just kind of bring tears to their eyes. They're angry one minute, the next moment they hear they hear their favorite song, and you know, they become totally docile. So music is a form of you know, pedagogy, as they call it, or ministry, you know, which was really its point. You know, we had block parties to make the community better. We had block parties to bring the community together. You know, we had these block parties and street. You know, it was always about community, and it wasn't about color. It wasn't about race. It was just about, okay, these people lived in their community, and you're serving the community. We were actually public servants. Hip hop is a public service message.
Gotcha. Now, are you allowed to talk about? So, you're gonna wrap it in some new music, right?
So we're gonna show the film, and we're gonna put music to it. I myself was a DJ back in the 70s. I started spinning records back in 77. In the early 80s to mid 80s, I worked in clubs up in Rochester, New York, you know, spinning records. So my desire was to get together crews from the old school who were there at the beginning to show people the difference between what an MC is versus what a rapper is. Because we had MCs, and the MC's job was the microphone control. That's what MC meant to some anyway, you know. Master of ceremonies, but we call it mic control. They control the mic, the DJ controlled the music, the breakdancer controlled the dance floor, and the graffitis control the art. So that's how we did it, as one community, as one people. And we want to bring that back full force, where we're not just teaching about hip-hop history, but we're making history by showing them how it's done and why it's done, and hopefully our love for it will be displayed through what we do, and they will also fall back in love with the way hip-hop was originally made.
Got it. And are there going to be any lyrics to the music, and who's going to be, can you talk about it? I know it's not released yet.
Well,
what's everyone to expect?
So we have old school MCs. We have the microphone Prince, Puerto Rican brother, who's, you know, he wants to, you know, put a message out there of love and respect. We have L.A. Sunshine from the Treacherous Three, and Mr. Schick, who was also, you know,
Nice.
A veteran MC. These are all veteran MCs. You know, they've been there from the start.
Yes, sir.
So these guys know what to do with a microphone. Me, myself, like I said, I know what to do with turntables. So I'm gonna be out there with my turntables, and these guys are gonna be running the microphone, you know, showing people how it's done. And I'm very excited about it.
Wow. And any time frame on when we can expect the track to be placed onto the new documentary, or the documentary, making it a?
Well, we're working on it. We're working on it as we speak. You know, we're working on it as we speak. You know, we're gonna start out, you know, doing live shows, and we're gonna take it from there. You know, we hopefully will have a showing or several showings here at the, you know, Bronx History Museum, where we can display exactly what we're trying to do and start, you know, giving the world, you know, the positive message again.
Definitely, and we're anxious, and we're really looking forward to showcase that documentary at our exhibit, you know, and hopefully have a screening with a speaker panel, including you, you know, that way everyone can see the new repackaged, you know, Rubble Kings with LA Sunshine, you know,
Sunshine,
Mr.
yeah.
Schick, and the microphone prints.
Yeah.
These are definitely some old school rapping and MCing pioneers for
Yes,
sure.
they're pioneers, and they know what they're doing.
Absolutely, I look forward to it. So, time frame?
Well, we're in October now, nearing the end of October, so hopefully by November, December, we're ready to roll.
Awesome. And anything you want us to know about the documentary? You know, I know you gave a little intro, you know, but before we end the interview, you know, anything else you want to talk about?
Well, you know, the thing about Rubble Kings is, you know, it's a beautiful story about peace. And that doesn't seem to be a popular issue right now, especially with all the stuff going on, you know, politically and around the world. Nobody's really talking about peace. Nobody cares about peace. But the message of peace, which was a message that the Ghetto Brothers brought, is a very important message. And it's not just about helping the Bronx, although we want to help the Bronx, but we want to help the world. You know, because there's a lot of hope that actually came from that peace treaty to kids like me who were, you know, maybe didn't have a father, you know, didn't have anybody to look up to. And we kind of looked up to the gang leaders, you know. So when these gang leaders signed the peace treaty, you know, it kind of gave us some hope and at least the ideology of peace. And maybe some kids today don't have that kind of ideology. So we like to give them that type of ideology where they have a little hope and peace for a better future, for a better community, for a better world.
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, in New York City and the Bronx, gangs have not gone away.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah.
You know, they're still a thing. So if you had a message to give to those contemporary, current gang members, you know, in a positive way, you know, what would that be? What would they take from this documentary?
First of all, gangs today are different from our gangs, but I'll say there's two words I can use to describe what really makes up a gang, which is a family: love and respect. But you have to first of all learn to love yourself, and you got to respect yourself. Once you get that accomplished, now you can start loving others and respecting others. Because if you don't love and respect yourself, you're not going to love and respect others. Now these are the two most important elements of a family, because a real gang is a family. I don't know what kind of gangs they have, but our gangs, we were families. And without love and respect, a family doesn't work. So if you're in a gang, which I don't have a problem with gangs, but I have a problem with gangs that don't understand love and respect. Love and respect for themselves, love and respect for each other, love and respect for their community. So learn about love and respect.
Absolutely. And it's definitely my honor to interview you and put this short interview out. You know, I want to thank you so much, Topaz1, for coming all the way down from Buffalo, New York, to be with us here today. And unfortunately, we also had microphone Prince come from Southern New Jersey, you know, to join us here and talk about this new venture. And we definitely want to, you know, congratulate him and show our appreciation for him supporting this project of yours. You know, this is Topaz1 for the Bronx Hip Hop Oral History Project.
Peace.
Peace.